Hey everyone, this is Afsheen Bhamani at Dabang Power Hour. We're here with a special guest.
Good afternoon, Houston. Welcome back to Dabang Power Hour. This is Adrianne Norman, your co-host, and happy National Voter Registration Day. So today's show is going to be all about voting, getting everyone ready for that November 5th election that's coming up, making sure you're registered. How do you find out? Where do you go? What's on the ballot? All of these things and more. So please, if you've got questions on voting or issues, give us a call. Our number is 713-974-4000, and we are joined by a very special guest today. We would like to welcome a very warm welcome to the Democratic Party chair for the Fort Bend County, Mr. Fred Taylor. Good afternoon,
Hello,
Chairman
everybody.
Taylor. Can you hear us?
I can. How everybody doing today?
Good,
Thank
good,
you
good. How are
for
you?
having me here today.
It's
I'm
good to
blessed.
have you. It's a very, very warm welcome to you. Glad you were able to come on air with us.
So happy National Voter Registration Day to you, Chairman Taylor.
Well, thank you. It is a very important day for everybody in this country, but most importantly, we want to say it's important for Fort Bend.
Yes, it is.
So, Chairman Taylor, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and really what do you do as the Democratic Party chair in Fort Bend County?
Well, this is probably my 36th year of being involved in politics since I was a young man. I'm proud to be a resident of Fort Bend here in Missouri City. Been a part of Missouri City for the last 21 years,
Wow.
and I'm so happy to be able to be the chair of Fort Bend in the Democratic Party. Today is one of those days that we're really doing a big push to try to register people in all of the communities, especially, again, in Fort Bend in the Democratic Party.
And so what are some of those things that the Democratic Party in Fort Bend is doing to get people registered?
Well, we have disseminated people across the whole entire county in various different offices, places that have a high traffic of individuals that we have deemed possible to be able to engage them to get them registered to be ready for November the 5th. That's just one of the things. The other thing is we have put people at various colleges to try to grab those kids out there in the college and get them registered, whether we get them sign up to receive mail by ballot or just letting them know the dates that they got to come back in town to be able to vote. You know, the great thing about it, we got 2 weeks of early voting, and we want to be able to get them here. We got a weekend that they can actually vote, come back home, vote, and go back up to school.
Wow, that's good. That's good. So, question for you, Chairman. How have you seen? What have you seen in our South Asian community? The engagement that you see from them.
You know,
What's your intake?
Well, let me tell you, I have seen so much excitement, so much engagement, so much enthusiasm in the South Asian community that it just makes me excited about the outcome that can happen with the influx of new registered voters from the South Asian community. I think as a Democratic Party chair, it makes me very excited to have so much hard work going in that community that's going to really boost our chances to be successful in November.
Okay. And do you have any expectations that you would like to kind of speak across? So I mean, we have the whole South Asian community listening to you on the air on Dabang Radio, and what would you like to kind of say out to them regarding this voting? What kind of more engagement that maybe you want to see, or what would you like to see from our South Asian community?
I like to see you guys to continue to do the great work you're doing with registering people encouraging people, getting excited, and making sure people understand the importance of their participation, the importance of getting registered before the deadline, and coming out and exercising your right to vote, exercising your right to be a part of something historical that's coming up with our new president. We're going to speak it into existence. Vice President Kamala Harris, and to be able to say, I was a part of that. I'm excited, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is excited that's looking forward to having a new direction with our new president to be.
And you talked about the voter registration deadline, and just so our listeners know, that is coming up soon. That's October 7th, and that's not only for new registration, but that's also if you've moved. You have to update your address by that date. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Not only do you have to update your address, but you got to make sure that you're on the roll. One of the things that's going on that's big right now is that our other side over there, I'm just going to say that because there's been a lot of purging. I was actually probably one of those that did not know that I could be purged, but I was. And so I encourage people.
Yeah, I think you're just about to say what I was going to ask you. So, and this is a nonpartisan show, but I think that it is important for people to know where to go if they aren't sure they're registered, or how do they check to see if they're registered?
Well, one of the things we're telling everybody is to call the election office in Richmond and talk to them and have them to go check while they're on the phone to verify that they are eligible to vote. Now, they were saying online that, if you ain't voted in 2 years, then you've probably been 2 presidential cycles, then you've probably been purged or what they call put in suspense. But that's not necessarily the case always. What's going on right now is they're just randomly suspending people voting privileges, and we don't know what the rhyme or reason is. So we're encouraging people to be able to go out there, make those phone calls, or go online and check it.
Better to be safe than sorry.
On the election cycle.
Better to be safe than sorry.
Always.
So all of our listeners, if to check before the registration deadline on October 7th, Chairman Taylor mentioned you could call the county. You can also go online to, I believe, vote411.org has a way for you to check your registration status. Probably the Secretary of State's website, too, at votetexas.gov might be another option for people. But it is important, Chairman Taylor, I think that you mentioned the national election at the top, but I want to talk to you about voting all the way down the ballot. So Texas used to have straight ticket voting, right?
Correct.
And do we still have straight ticket voting?
We don't. And that has been one of the subjects of a lot of discussions and disagreements, and but you got two sides to that. The theme that we want to push is we have the option to vote. We have the privilege to vote. And with that privilege comes with responsibility. And that is not just voting for a name that you recognize or a friend. Vote all the way down the ballot. All the way down the ballot. This is a nonpartisan show, but of course I am the chairman of the Fort Bend Democratic Party. I'm going to say vote all the way down the ballot with Democrats. But just vote, and then vote to the bottom. And when you do that, you ensure that your vote was counted in every race.
And so what are some of the offices that you'll see further down the ballot? And why should people care? Why would people, care what's on the ballot or who's on the ballot way down 2 or 3, 4 pages down the line?
Yeah, that is such an important question you just asked me. Normally and always, you're going to have the president, especially in this cycle right here on the top of the ballot. But the things that control and most importantly that affect people everyday life is the ballot down at the bottom. That's your local municipal races, your local school board races, your different ballots that they amendments that they put on the ballot to say if they're going to do a a bond that's going to, raise money for teacher's salary or repair of the roads. All those things happen at the bottom. There's so many things that affect you locally down at the bottom of the ballot. And unfortunately, they put those most important things to us at the bottom. But yet we need to make sure the number one thing we do when we go in there voting booth is we vote all the way down, because those are the things that's going to affect our day-to-day life.
Right. Those are the offices close to home, right? Those are the day-to-day close to home issues. And so if our voters want to learn more about those candidates, or, how do you find out? Because the national candidates are easy to find. They're all over the TV, the radio, internet.
All over the media.
How do you find out more about those local races?
Well, what we're pushing is we send out, various emails of their particular platforms. They can always look these candidates on their line. They can go to our website. They can go to the actual county website where a lot of these candidates have to register. So look up what this candidate stands for. Yes, you can find the national candidates like a state senator or president, but you have to do a little research, and I think a lot of times we don't want to do that. What we're trying to do is make it a little bit easier by doing things in the community, doing things like doing block walking, knocking on doors, passing out these flyers that have their websites on, and providing all kind of documentation and information so it can make it easier for them to make an informed decision.
Can people find out what's on their specific ballot ahead of time and then take that information in when they go to vote?
So, yes. So there's a couple of things. There's a sample ballot that is printed each election cycle that they can actually take inside of the ballot booth. But what we do over here in Fort Bend is we have a slate card, what we have with all of our elected Democrats that we want them to go and just look at and vote all the way down the ballot with. So we give them information. We give them how to contact them, how to go and research them, because we have their websites on it. We have things where they can actually sit down and research every candidate just by looking at our slate card that we have. We're going to be passing those out even more in the coming weeks to make sure that everyone that we make contact with have that information to be able to make a educated decision when they go into the ballot vote.
But people can get the ballot with that they would see in the ballot box, right? It's going to look the same with both candidates, and then they can do their research all the way down. Perfect.
I think that would be a great way for anyone to research any of these candidates if they need to be.
Is that sample ballot on the county elections website?
It is. It's on the county, and what's so great about it is, depending on what precinct you is, and we try to educate people what we mean about their precinct. For instance, 2117, right? If you go in there and you put in your precinct, then it'll pull up your ballot that you're going to see when you literally are going into the ballot box. Every precinct may or may not have different people on your ballot. If you live in, so Fort Bend, we have 4 precincts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those who live in precinct 2 won't be able to vote for a candidate in precinct 4 that's running for a commissioner. And they need to know that. They need to know when they're going in there and they don't see that name, it's because you're not in that particular precinct.
Yeah.
And so we try to educate all our voters here in Fort Bend, and Harris County is just like that, because I've worked in both of them, that education, and education. And so part of that is knowing what precinct you live in, who represents you, and who is going to be on your ballot. And that's part of the education process that I do. Part of my job is to help do that and to facilitate that. And we're engaging in that process right now, and we're going to continue to do it all the way to November 5th.
Okay, that's great. Chairman Taylor, one more thing. Who is eligible for mail-in votes? Can you tell all our listeners?
Yeah.
So they know, this process?
It's so many people that's eligible for mail-in ballots.
Okay.
I mean, there's really no limit, but I guess you can say where they start with is 65 and older.
Okay.
The
65.
sick and shut in. Okay. Even if you incarcerated and you're not with a felony, you can And if you're incarcerated, let's just say you got picked up for some tickets and you're going to be in there for 4 or 5 weeks or a month, you can still request because you're going to be there during the election cycle.
Okay.
But what we also try to educate is those college students, they're eligible for a mail-in ballot.
Okay.
Okay? And so if they're going to be out of town, they can request that a mail-in ballot come to their dormitory or their apartment if they want to vote in their local election. And so, and then there's another population that is eligible to vote that most people don't know. That's called a special need, or if you have a disability that causes you not able to stand in long lines.
Okay. That was going to be my next question. Okay.
All of those things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if we have a medical disabled, they come to the poll.
Yeah.
Will somebody come out with the voting machine and take their votes, or they have to come inside? So that is that.
So if you have a
medical
a
condition?
medical condition,
Okay.
you can actually pull up in your car,
Okay.
and most likely somebody is going to come out there
Okay.
and bring this little computer out there. It's a little mobile voting box, and allow you to sit right in your car and select your voting selection.
Okay, well, this is really great, and sounds like a very, very convenient thing for our communities. So, if anyone out there that is eligible to vote, now you know how you are eligible. You can come out there, make your votes, and there's so many ways that Chairman Taylor has just emphasized on how you can vote and how you can also mail in votes. So all of you guys who are eligible, and now you know, and we will have this information on our page as well for Radio Dabang.
Chairman Taylor, let me ask you about voting for, you touched on it a little bit, for young people and for college students. You mentioned that they were eligible to have mail-in ballots, but I think that leads nicely into early voting too, because that could be an option for them if they're out of town. So talk to us a little bit about early voting for this upcoming election.
So in my years of experience, those who really get out to vote for early voting tend to win the race. That's probably what I can say, probably 90 to 95% true. And that's why early voting is so important, so important. And to get young people out there, because they are one of those populations that tend to wait to the last minute, we try to encourage them to go out, vote early, beat the lines on election day, and that way you won't be turned away or you won't get discouraged and walk away. So early voting is so important. I mean, so important that we need everybody that can hear my voice to understand, to encourage people, to encourage our young people, to encourage everybody to do early voting and not wait the election day, because anything can happen. I've seen storms, hurricanes, floods, the rain, the heat, all these things that discourage people or give them a reason not to vote on election day. And so many races are won and lost between 1 and 2 votes. In Fort Bend, we done had a couple of races that have been won with 1 vote or 7 votes.
Very
and that's
true.
how crucial every vote
Very
means.
true.
And so early voting for this upcoming election is October 21st through November 1st. And I think you mentioned earlier that covers a weekend as well. So people, especially college students, could come home. Where can you go vote during early voting?
Well, there are certain selected areas that the county select. In Fort Bend, we're going to have, I think, approximately, 53. I may be missing a couple of, but I know on election day I was told that it's going to be right about 88.
But you don't. Do you have to vote where your precinct is, or can you vote in anywhere in the county?
Oh, anywhere. We've been fortunate for the last few years that anybody in Fort Bend as well as in Harris County can vote anywhere in the county on early voting, doing the early voting, or even on election day.
So if somebody's driving around town and they get the urge to vote and they haven't voted yet, they could just pull on in if they're in their county. Is that right?
Pull in, and just go in
Just
there
go vote.
and vote. And that's the beauty of having voting anywhere in the county. Those restrictions are not in place anymore, which really encouraged the voting. And also, it raised the voting numbers. We want to go from 13% to 51%, and we can get our numbers up.
Yeah.
Because we vote such a low dismal percentage-wise, and so when enthusiasm is low, so the voting go. And then, people don't vote, but when they don't vote, you're voting anyway.
So I think that, people that vote in the primaries, because we've got the primary election, this is the general election. Maybe we can talk a little bit about the difference in those two elections. I guess let's start there. So talk to us about what is the primary and then what is the general election that's coming up?
Well, I look at it like this. I'm a sports fan, and the primary is like selecting your team when you're looking to build a good football team or basketball or soccer team. So in the primary, you have the same family members on both sides deciding that I want you to be on my team. And so there's a selection process in that. And that selection process is coming from one side of the team, and we say the Democrats, the other side, the Republicans. So the Democrats, they decide who they want on their team. And then whoever come out of that process, called the primary, and the other side, the primary, we meet up in November. And in November, game on. That's when the two teams on opposite side of the ball come on the same field and start to play. And this is where we're at right now. We're in this process of playing the real game. Winner take all in November the 5th.
It's the
But
Super
we
Bowl.
get a head start on it by calling early voting. And this is where, you're marching down the field, and as you gain ground and gain points, once you get to the end of the game in the fourth quarter, whoever got the most points wins. And so I kind of explain that to the kids so they can have that analogy to know how the different voting processes come out and play out, how important it is to pick the right team member. And so when I say, you know what, do you want to pick LeBron James or do you want to pick Kevin James? No one knows Kevin James, but they know LeBron. And so your opportunity to choose him, so you have a good team, you got to come out in the primary. You got to come out and you got to say, you know what, I want LeBron because I know he's capable of taking me to the championship. So primaries are so important, and most people don't get it. And so under my leadership, I'm going to make sure that people understand every 2 years, and those every 2 years are even numbers. And that's something else. People just don't get it. Even numbers are primary year. Mm-hmm. The odd years are where people get geared up, get in shape, get trained to go into the even years for what we call the primary. Every 2 years we have a primary. But that's a civic lesson when I talk about who get elected every 2 years and who get elected every 4 years and every 6 years. Yeah. But that is the difference between the primary and the general election. And that's how those two processes work hand in hand.
Okay.
That was great. And I want to encourage our listeners, if y'all have questions about voting or voting procedures, to give us a call at 713-974-4000. Chairman Taylor, you are just killing it here, giving us all sorts of information.
This is very informative. I'm even enjoying your show here. All this information that you're giving out, it's very informative. I believe a lot of our listeners probably had these questions in mind as well, and was just having come up forward with these questions. But it's really nice to know all these things about voting, so people know exactly what's the procedure and what's the process of going out to vote. Another thing is on the voting system, we can tell who has voted, but not who they voted for. So people get confused because of the primary election is known if one has voted, for this person or that person. Can you kind of clarify how that procedure works or how that format works?
Well, absolutely. You know, when you talk about primaries, let's just go with primaries. And primaries, like I said, you have one team, the D team, the other team, the R team. And those who vote in those particular races or those teams, we know that those are Democrats who voted. We
Right.
can tell that you voted right there, you're a Democrat. That is the only way we can tell who voted. Because come November, it's a open field.
So that is the same process as
And
the other.
right, because if you take the analogy that Democratic primary is a straight ticket voting process, but you have choices of Democrats. On the other side, the Republicans have a straight ticket voting in the primary, but the choices are between Republicans. In the general election, yes, the only thing that distinguishes the difference is by their name. They're going to have a R or a D. But we cannot quantify that until the end of the voting when whoever got the most votes wins. Now, do we know the individuals that voted? No, we don't know that process because we don't have that ability at our level to look. We can pretty much say based on the general area that we know if you voted, let's just use this example in, I would say, let's just say Vicksburg, Missouri City. Vicksburg, Missouri City, 90% of the time goes Democrat. Okay, but if you vote Sugar Land, 80 to 90% it goes Republican. So we can pretty much extrapolate and say, okay, if this vote came into Vicksburg, there's a high possibility that it's Democratic voters. And if you live there and we recognize your name, we say it's a possibility. It's a possible Democrat. But if you vote in Sugar Land, we say, well, this is a possible Republican. And
So-
that is the only way we can kind of delineate that says what type of voter you are. And that's how they draw the map. They draw the map based on the win percentage of the various voters who voted one way or another. And so if a Republican candidate wins Sugar Land, we'll say that that's possibly could be a Republican area. So they're going to draw that into their Republican area. And the same thing with the Democrats. And so we can't really, in November, kind of pull it out other than looking at the areas that this particular candidate won.
Okay.
And so, but I just want to stress to our listeners that it's can't see who you voted for. It's a secret ballot, just basing it on who votes in the primaries and which primary, and then who wins in the general election. It's all very generic information.
This is
Nobody
good.
can
It's
see.
generic.
Nobody can see exactly which candidates you voted for. I don't want to scare
Right.
anybody off
Yeah.
thinking people are looking over their shoulders.
Yeah.
Let's say that it's election day or it's early voting time and you're ready to go vote. What do you need to bring with you, or what do you need to have whenever you go into the polls?
Well, there's been a series of, argument, contention, and all of the things that comes with that, and that is ID. There's both sides that have opinions about having an ID, but an ID is something that you have to have. You have to show ID to buy liquor, and so that's the argument the other side have. So you have to have your ID.
What needs to match on that ID?
Well, what they're using right now is it must match your address on your voting record. And so you can still vote, but you would vote what they call a provisional ballot.
Okay.
Okay? Because it's still showing that you're registered and you're eligible to vote. But if your ID don't match, your address on your ID don't match the address that's on your voting record,
Okay.
then you have to vote a provisional ballot. I'm going to say why.
Oh, this is good.
Because, again, we go back to the precinct which you live in that may say your person that you are eligible to vote for is different from the person in a different precinct. So that's one of the reasons why they want your ID to match up.
Now, the last name, does that have any effect on it for voting? Because, a lot of people out there, sometimes they're registered with a different last name, but their IDs have not been changed with that last name. Does that matter? Does that take any effect?
Oh, yeah.
Does it?
That does.
It does, okay. So,
And
Yeah,
so,
and it affects women. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. Go ahead, Chairman Taylor.
No, and that affects women a whole lot because women have to change their name, or some women change their name to their spouse's name.
Correct.
And because of that, that is something and a concern that women have to take in consideration a whole lot more, unfortunate, than men do.
And that's one of those changes that have to be made soon, right? That's by the October 7th deadline for the name changes as well?
Yeah, and then you are susceptible to the different agencies that have to do the process of changing those names. And so when you're dealing with that, it's kind of like getting a passport. That can be in 2 weeks or that can be in 6 months. And so you have to be aware of that. If you know you just recently got married, change your name, or have some type of changes in your demographics, whether it be address, name change, or whatever, you have to make those adjustments where it can reflect the same thing that you have on your voter's information card.
And so I'm sure there are some
one thing
people...
else I want to do.
No, please, go ahead.
One thing else I want to go in there. A lot of times when we sign these voters registration cards, we just scrabble. Then, and what I mean by scribble, we don't do our regular signature.
And that's important.
If we do a mail-in ballot, and that signature don't match, your ballot won't be counted. So we have to be cognitive that when we do a voter's card and we mail it in or send it in or they have it, and you decide to do a mail-in ballot, those signatures have to match up. And if they don't, then that's where, again, it makes your ballot invalid. Doesn't stop you from voting, but it makes it invalid because they cannot match their signature. And that's a whole nother process and a reason why. But that's something that we need to make sure that our possible voters are cognitive of, aware of, to make sure that you try to use your same signature as much as possible. So the validation process of it can be easier rather than putting it to the side where it becomes a pile that they have to just go back over or dismiss.
And so that's a really important point, Chairman Taylor, because a lot of people might not understand exactly, they think they mail in their ballots and that's all they need to do. They really need to be careful and deliberate about their signatures and the process. And then they can even check online to make sure that it gets there. I think that you can go to the Secretary of State's website and make sure they get your ballot. Is that correct?
Right. So you can see if your ballot was received once they check it in. So there's a process of making sure that gets registered and processed in where your ballot is noted that it's been received. And so that's one of the things that now they have in place. It used to be where those things sit in mailbox for weeks and never get counted, and then all of a sudden they go by, the mailman go by, and they see piles and piles and stacks of mail-in ballots, and they never get counted. And this recently happened about 3 years ago.
Okay, that's good to hear. Chairman Taylor, I know we're talking about voting system since it is National Voters Registration Day. It's amazing to talk about it since we have so many listeners. It's good informative information to let them know how they can vote and what all can have them eligible to be voters. But not only that, I wanna ask you, you as the Fort Bend County Chairman, what is your role? And I would like our listeners to know why we have you on here and why we are talking about all this voting and what role you play in our Fort Bend County.
Okay,
so they can understand why are we talking and why we have all these conversations with you. And in some like we know it, but some may not know. So would love to tell the listeners, who you are, why, what is your role, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I want to go back to real briefly, and that is a part of the mail-in ballot. We have to be careful where we drop our mail-in ballots of these mail-in boxes. So I wanted to stress that because depending on where you drop your mail-in ballot, it may be picked up if you drop it the day of the election. or a couple of days for the election, it may not be picked up for a couple of weeks, depending on if you're in a rural area or not a real frequently visit by the mailbox mail carrier. And so we have to make sure that where we pick that up, we do that. We'd be cognitive of where we literally drop our mail-in ballot.
And so would you recommend people just taking it straight to the post office, or I mean, what is your recommendation if they want to avoid things like that?
Well, some people may not have that opportunity to be able to, if they're in a rural area, to do anything but drop it where they can get it at. So that's something that we basically use. It's a case by case. But I try to encourage anybody to try to get it in a highly frequently visited mailbox. But about me, what's my role?
Yeah.
I tell people my role is like the quarterback of the New England Patriots, which is one of my favorite teams. And my job is to get the ball down the goal and into the cross the goal line. So,
Chairman Taylor, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I have one caller, and I would like to take them on to see what they have to say, if you don't mind. Hang on.
Go ahead.
Welcome, caller. This is Afsheen Bhamani, Dabang Power Radio.
Hello.
Hello, you want to say your name?
Hi, my name is Sana.
I'm sorry, say again.
My name is Sana.
Hi, Sana. How are you?
I'm great. How about you?
Good. So what question do you have for us today? We have Chairman Taylor on the phone, on the air with us.
Oh, yeah. So my first question would be for the upcoming November election.
Okay.
And that would be, how do I know who is going to be on my ballot, and how do I learn about these candidates? Also, can I vote for both Democrats and Republicans on the ballot for different positions?
Chairman Taylor?
So, yes. So to answer that question, you find out by going on, if you're in Fort Bend, you're going on the Fort Bend election office, and you can find out what precinct you live in based on your address, and then that'll tell you where to go to pull up your ballot. You can pull up your sample ballot that way. So that's that question. Now, I'm biased when you ask me that question about can you vote for Republican and Democrat. I'm going to say, of course you can vote straight ticket Democrats all the way down. But in reality, you have the option now that we have no straight ticket voting. Your choice is your choice. And you're able to choose whoever you choose to based on your preference. And that's just one of the things that we're blessed to have.
And I will make sure that there's a website link on the Facebook page for our show where you can click right on that and you can pull up your ballot so you can see what's on it. So you can go to the Radio Dabang Facebook page and check that out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you go to the Fort Bend Democratic Party website at fortbendcdp.com, you'll see where you can go in there and pull up your location, where you live at, and you can find out where you can vote at. You can find your precinct based on your address, and you can get a lot of information from there. And so that would be something that I would encourage you to go to and start right there, especially if you're a resident in Fort Bend.
Yeah, there's a website called forbendvotes.org. I believe you can also see your ballot there.
And you also asked about how you find out about the candidates and their issues. There's some great nonpartisan websites out there, like the League of Women Voters. You can go to their website, and I'll share that information on the Facebook page as well, where they break down even local candidates and their positions on different issues. And that's a lot of work, but it's so worth it because, like Chairman Taylor was saying at the beginning of the broadcast, those local elections are what's going to touch your day-to-day life just so much more than you probably even realize. And so we'll make sure that we get those resources out to you. Any other questions?
Oh, is that Bella?
Yes, I do have one more question regarding green card holders. as they're not citizens, I just wanted to confirm if they're eligible to vote.
That is correct. They are
They are
not.
not.
Unfortunately, they're not.
You
They're
have
not.
to be a citizen in order to vote in the state of Texas.
Yep.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling in.
Okay, back to you, Chairman Taylor. So sorry to cut you
Yes.
off. So go ahead, continue telling us about yourself. We have immigrants that are not really used to party infrastructures in our area. So, you can kind of tell us a little bit about, what you do. And, we have them listening. So we have a few more
like I
minutes.
said, the quarterback of the team, my job is to make sure that I get all of my players that we chose in the primary down the field across the goal line. And the process for doing that is education and making sure people understand that these are the candidates that we're putting forward. These people right here that have went through the primary, been vetted, and they have been chosen by the people. And my job is to make sure that not only the people of the Democratic primary have chosen these people, but also make them appealing across both parties, since we don't have a straight ticket voting. But fortunately, once we pick our great candidate, we feel real confident that, we done got the right people in place. We can do the right things by allowing them to share all their information, provide enough information for people to be able to research and to look at their platform and make an educated decision, and then vote with an educated mind that this is the person who's going to be the right people who's going to service you in that particular position that they're voting for.
Excellent. And I think that's a great way to kind of wrap up our last 5 minutes here, Chairman Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us. Are there any just last minute words of wisdom, sign off, or information that you want to make sure our listeners know before Election Day?
Well, one of the most important things is make sure you're registered. Check and see if you've been purged. Check and see if you are a ballot and a person that is eligible to go to the polls and vote. Check your IDs. Make sure you check your IDs and make sure when you go there it matches with your last name, it matches with your address. And then that's the first step that you can do. But the other step that you can do, called the two-step, is you go out and you vote. You vote early. And when you vote early, you have already secured your vote to be in place. And if there's things that's wrong, you have an opportunity to correct them. Then you tell other people. You bring 5 people. You bring 10 people to vote with you. That way, you are also encouraging your voice to be louder, because not only did you did it, you're bringing 5 to 10 other people to amplify your vote and your voice. So I want to say that vote, bring people to vote, and also make sure that you check and verify all of the particulars that you need: address, signatures, last name, so you won't be turned away or have to use a provisionary ballot. So we want to make sure that less people are being forced to use those provisional ballots than more. And so that's going to take an effort on everybody's part, but it's going to start with you as the voter.
And those are great action items to end on, Chairman Taylor. I want to stress that date coming up quick is October 7th to check that registration, check that name, check that address, get it done, and tell a friend, tell a spouse, tell a kid. Make sure that you might think you're registered. Let's double check. It never hurts to double check. The Dabang Power Hour is all about empowerment. We want to get people involved. And so register, number one, bring a friend. I love that advice.
Absolutely.
And then you got to get out there and vote on Election Day.
I say make a group of friends, make it a day out, and just go vote. And it's very important to use your rights to vote. It helps us keep the right person in the right seat. And I can't emphasize enough on that. And I believe with everyone's voting system, we have a great voting system in place that we just have to make that use of. And I believe Chairman Taylor has enough emphasized on how important it is, and as well as the eligibility, and as well, none less to say that medical condition people are also accommodated. So, needless to say, we have made it. They have made such a convenience way for you guys to come out and use your rights to vote. If you have any other questions, if you need any more information, further information will be posted on our Facebook page of Dabang Radio, and you may check out links there that we're going to post, and you can find more information there.
And thank you again, Chairman Taylor, and thank you for joining us, listeners. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday, 1 to 2 p.m. again. And we look forward to continuing to, educate the community, activate the community, get everyone involved where their voices can be heard. And one of the best ways to do that in the United States is go to the ballot box on Election Day. So make sure that you're ready.
Absolutely.
And so thank you for joining us, everyone. This is Adrianne Norman with Dabang Power Hour.
And this is Afsheen Bhamani with Dabang Power Hour. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us, and tune in next week,
y'all.
Tuesday, 1 to 2 p.m.
Thank y'all so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Taylor. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank y'all. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, all the listeners, for listening to us, and we really appreciate all the calls and questions that we got today, as well as messages. We had quite a few questions today, and I'm really appreciative that you all are there listening to us. And I'm glad that this is really taking an effect of us creating this platform for our community. Thank you so much.
And if you think of anything after we're off air, just hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We're all over the place. So send us your questions that way too. Thanks so much, and we look forward to you joining us next week on Dabang Power Hour.
Have a lovely Tuesday.